Hi everybody, hope everyone is well and that you all had a good week. Believe it or not, we actually had a very nice week here. Yes, it started with the attack from Iran, and yes, that was rather tense, but thank God, overall, it was not nearly as bad as it could have been. There was a young girl who was seriously injured, but considering what they sent our way, it could have been much worse, and thank God for that it wasn't much worse. Overall, the week though was very good, and I hope everybody else had a good week. And I'd just like to share a quick idea that I had as we get into Passover that I think is very relevant to what is going on right now. So as we all know, I believe you all know, that the story of Passover really begins with Pharaoh, with Pharaoh, Pharaoh or Pharaoh, where he is worried that the Jews might end up leaving Egypt. He says to all his advisors that, look, there might be a war, and if there's a war, the Jews might join our enemies, and if they join our enemies, they might leave Egypt. Now, why exactly he's so worried about the Jews leaving Egypt, we don't know. What's such a big deal if the Jews leave Egypt? They didn't come there to stay. They came there temporarily. But for Paro, that was a big deal. It's like the old Soviet Union, where it was a crime to try to leave. I don't know for everyone or just for the Jews, but certainly if a Jew tried to go to Israel from the Soviet Union, they could, and oftentimes did, end up in jail. And that's an interesting parallel. Either way, Paro has this concern. It seems remote, doesn't seem particularly related to the reality that's going on at the time, but it's his worry and it's his fear. And as a result, he is willing to attack the Jewish people. First, he attacks them financially speaking by increasing their taxes. Then he enslaves them and takes away their freedom. And then he increases the difficulty of the work that he gives them until it's back-breaking labor. And finally, he resorts to infanticide. And he commands his entire nation to take any Jewish baby that's born, baby who is born, and throw him into the Nile River. Murder on a mass scale, real genocide, real Holocaust, not the kind of baseless accusations, but one that you can actually back up with a logical and reasonable argument. So that is Paro. Paro has a worldview, he has his concern, he has how he sees reality, and he's willing to do anything to implement his worldview. This is not something that we are strangers to throughout Jewish history. This is something that we've faced time and again. Right now it's Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas, and there are all these apologists for them, and there's this new woke ideology, and this is the latest incarnation of people with a worldview who are willing to do or support anything to coincide with their worldview. But before that, it was the Soviets, and then there was the Nazis, and there was the Cossacks, and so on and so forth. A long history of this. But Jewish history is not just about terrible people trying to do terrible things to the Jewish people. There's also a Jewish response. And that Jewish response is first and foremost seen in Moshe Rabbeinu, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, go to Paro and say no. Go to Paro and say, let my people go. Not just no, but I don't care about your worldview. I don't care what you think you're worried about, what your fears are. You may not enslave our people. Right? You can't take them hostage. You can't burn them alive. You can't behead them. You can't do it. Let my people go. If you don't, there'll be consequences. And then, if you refuse, well, once again, let my people go. We will not back down. We will not allow you to keep enslaving us. We will not allow you to keep the evil going. We will, in God's name, confront you. And finally, at the end of the day, what happens? Exactly what Paro didn't want to happen. He didn't want the Jewish people to leave. At the end of the day, the Jewish people left. And indeed, you can even see it as a type of war. Eventually there was a war. God went to war against Mitzrayim, against the Egyptians, but as a result of the war, the actions they initiated because of their fear. There's a little bit of irony there. But we also said more than just no, more than just let my people go. We replaced it with a different ideology, a different morality, a different vision of reality, where means matter, not just ends. Lo tirtzach, lo tignov, do not steal, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder. And then a whole society where each city has to have courts and justices, and the judges have to judge fairly and honestly. You have to have honest marketplaces. You have to take care of the poor. There's a whole response. There's a whole different order that is the alternative to what Paro had. Paro is what I want, I do. And if this is in line with what my ends, so I don't care about the means. I'll do anything to implement that. Iran will do anything. Hamas will do anything. Hezbollah will do anything. The Palestinians will do anything. They've done it time and time again. I've been at the funerals. I know the stories, and it's horrific. Yes, you can find an example here of some Jew who does something wrong. You can find an example there. But that's not the overall picture. We always have to get the big picture. The big picture in terms of violence started in 1920. And there was no Jewish state, no Jewish army, no quote-unquote occupation, no quote-unquote settlements, but there were Arabs murdering Jews. And it didn't even begin there. There was violence before that also, in the 1800s and earlier. But I'm talking about modern, the modern quote-unquote conflict. So with that said, when we sit down for Pesach this year, and we read the Haggadah, we have to realize that we are living this right now. That this is our reality, that there are these massive forces out there who have this worldview, have this ideology, and they're willing to do anything. They're willing to say anything, make any accusation. It's not about truth. It's not about justice. It's not about morality. It's about the end goal. That's what they're about. And they're willing to do anything and make any justification, and they have a lot of support in the world. But that doesn't deter us. We get up, we come to Paro, we say, let my people go. And right now, as we are about to start with Pesach, we should say also, let our people go. Send the hostages free, and we're going to come in with our chayalim, and we're going to keep, pressing. We're going to work on destroying Hamas. We have to take care of Hezbollah also. You have to stand up to Iran and all the supporters in the world. And that is one of the most Jewish responses you can have. At the same time, you have to figure out what's going to be the new moral order that's going to exist in its place when we're done. Some people think the time to think about that is now. I'm not 100% convinced. But either way, that's the framework. And I wish you all good Shabbos and a happy Passover. Take care. Bye-bye.